This Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Once again, we appreciate your presence with us. We really, really do. And we're thankful that you would take some time out, even if you just kind of randomly came through this, or so you think. We don't believe that there's anything random that happens. We give all praise and honor to the Most High for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And she does many different things for the community. But specifically through that business, she is in the business of making sure that your health is taken care of. So, she does all types of stuff for us to make sure that we remain healthy, that we remain on point, that we realize and recognize what we need to do to take care of even our physiology. Our physiology. We take care of our psychology, our mentality, our theological places, sometimes spiritual places, energy, whatever you want to call it. But I'm so thankful that she has decided to take on the calling, which is to help us in the physical and help us to remain healthy and help us to know how things work with ourselves. So we're thankful and grateful for what she does, and we honor what she does and we're appreciative of what she does. So, of course, to everybody, to the ministerial staff, to those who are in training, those who are part of SOC, those who are part of our family community, those who are part of the diaspora, those who are human beings, those who just want some comprehension of some things. Maybe you are one of these people that uses the terminology. I don't agree with it, but the terminology that says I'm not really religious, but I'm spiritual and all that stuff, because religion doesn't mean what we think it means. Religion literally is a legion of people who repetitively do the same thing. So whatever your religion is or whatever your thought process is, we're appreciative of you. Thank you so much for being on. Hey, how you doing, Big Brother Thomas? How you doing? Once again, Catfish, Valerie, is it Fruit Lou? I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Nay, how you doing? Why is there, sorry, it just scrolled up on me. Why is there only asking because I know you're so knowledgeable? I'm sorry. Hey, man, quick random question. You believe there is a cure for cancer? It has to be, right? Yeah, of course. Well, there's a cure for everything. Cancer, really nobody has an actual definition of what cancer is. My wife is the herbalist, so she'd be able to give more information on this. But really, there's no cancer can be considered to be a lot of things. It can be considered to be a cell that's not eating things correctly. It could be a cell that doesn't digest things correctly. Cancer can be your cell is only getting 40% of the oxygen that it needs, et cetera, right? Cancer can be stuff that's going on with your cell wall. At the end of the day, cancer is a sign that your body's not healthy overall. And so it depends on what the cancer is as far as what you need to eat, what you need to do, how much sun you need to get in there. Sometimes even, believe it or not, something as simple as like flushing your system with a bunch of vitamin C for a really long time, fasting. But, as far as any what we would call illness or dis-ease, there's always something for it. Amen. You said, what about praying at 3 a.m.? Elohim's been waiting you up constantly. Well, he got something to say. He got something to say. I would listen. I would write it down, do all those different things. And if you guys want more information on what we do and even what I was talking about with my wife, all you have to do is make sure that you get go on our Kofi_43 or Kofi_42, either one, on TikTok. All you got to do is just go on there and look up what's on there, just look up our link tree, rather. Look up the link tree, and you'll be able to find information, how you can get on with us and participate in what we're doing. So we're thankful and grateful for you guys for being on. I'm just trying to get Facebook on real quick and then we'll get started. But yeah, we have a whole YouTube channel. We've got a whole bunch of stuff with our information on it. Now that I've got our devices and everything working for multiple different things to be up, you can even go to the YouTube channel and just look through a list of stuff, all types of stuff, and we'll make sure we get back to you. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Mr. Southern Charm, how you doing? Marcia, you said you missed the details. But once again, if you want more details about my wife, just reach out to us. Oh, my wife is on Bloom and Flourish. The letter, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. How you doing, babe? So you can find her in the chat, in the comment section right now. Feel free to be able to talk to her. She's even talking about cancer in the comment section. So thank you for doing that, babe. But yeah, she's right there. So you can talk to her one-on-one, all that great stuff. But we're going to get into Genesis Revisited. That's what we'll be talking about in our in our rising sessions. For those of you who would like to, participate in the in some of the other things that we do, you can, just once again, if you're on TikTok, look up stuff that's on our page or whatever, and click on there, and you'll be able to find out more things that are going on. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the live going on Facebook. I think we've got it on all platforms. Looks like we're ready to go just about. Awesome. Thank you for your patience. We're about to get right into it. I got a Sharpie. Hopefully it works. I didn't have a chance to test it. It should be all right though. So we're going to set some ground rules for this discussion. Right. And thank you to the moderators and everything, but I'm not even just talking about with them. I'm talking about, we're going to set some ground rules. We're going to make sure that there's some things that we have to make sure that we recognize before we get in here, because we're going to have a cultural conversation. We're very big, if it's your first time with us, we're very big on culture. Right. And so if you don't have that cultural conversation, you're going to miss a lot. If you don't recognize what's being said, you're going to miss a lot. Oh, goodness. Sorry, hold on. You know what? I'll leave it there for now. We got to get started. So we want to make sure that we make you aware of some ground rules, so that from this point on, when we talk and somebody says, well, I got a question, or you're not saying this, or you're not blah, blah, whatever, I'm going to just simply say, hey, check out our ground rules. It's on the YouTube channel. Okay. So we're just going to let you know that from this point on. All right. So if there's certain things that pop up or certain things that you want to discuss or whatever, my answer will probably be after today, depending on, how much time I have, especially my answer may just be, hey, if you want me to go through a long thing, that's something that I might not have hours and hours to discuss, but you can, look up our ground rules and to be able to find out more information. So that's what this today is to set, the ground rules, to make sure that we're aware of how this stuff works, that we're aware of what is being said. We're aware about the shots. We're aware of a lot of different things that maybe you've never heard of before. Right. But we want to make sure that you are, in fact, with us and recognize the context. Okay. So we're going into Genesis Revisited. Really, it's going to be Genesis chapter 1 and 2. So I'm not really going through the whole thing. But Genesis chapter 1 and 2 is our focus on this. If you can get Genesis 1 and 2 and actually what it really means, you will discover that you'll actually be able to read the Bible, whether you want to believe in it as allegorical or historical or etc. Make it your canon, whatever the case might be. You will at least be able to see it for the first time. A lot of people say that they've read the Bible, but you can't read something without having proper interpretation. So interpretation is key. And thank you to everybody once again. If you're on the podcast with us, we appreciate you. How you doing, Brother Clem? If you're on, and Sister Dawn, and to everybody, I'm sorry I missed YouTubers. How you doing, Sister Rhonda? Everybody who's on. So we went and we welcome all the new guests, of course. If you're new to here, thank you again. How you doing, Israel? We want to make sure, once again, we're going to focus in, we're going to hone in today on the cultural aspect, and we're going to lay some ground rules out, because here's the problem. We were talking about this in our early rise of Bible study session that we just came out of. There's a difference between, as much as people do not want to believe this, not everybody is the same. That sounds like something that's not that in depth, right? Hey, Takwa. Shalom, right? That sounds like, how you doing, Sister Beverly? Sounds like something that everybody should know. Not everybody's the same, but the reality is that's not necessarily as known as you might think it is. We have this mindset that everybody learns the same. Ultimately, all religions are the same. Nobody's really giving you anything different. Somebody says that you should look at my cult, the way a culture impacts something. You have a lot of people that will say, why are you using it that way? Why are you talking about this or whatever? But the reality is we're not all the same. Not all cultures are the same. And if we get into that a little deeper, really what we're trying to say, if we want to get even deeper, is for real, Not only are not all cultures the same, but that means that not all ways of looking at everything is the same. So we have to set some ground rules. We got to set a foundation, because if I say Genesis, you think Genesis is actually what you think Genesis means the beginning. Yeah, not all religions are the same. The word religion is literally legion. The letter I and E are interchangeable, so it's actually religion. So what do you repetitively do as a legion? Everybody's religious, believe it or not. Everybody is religious. Just because we don't all bow down to the same Elohim or Netzah or deity or deist or God, because even those mean different things. But everybody's religious. Everybody does something repetitively with a legion of people that believe something very similar. You can be a hermit and still be religious, have a legion of people, because if there's a legion of people that are hermits, then it means that you yourself are in the religion of being a hermit. So we have to set some ground rules, and then make sure that we're thinking correctly. So one of the first things that we have to go over is everybody, if everybody's not the same, then the next question is the Bible written for everybody, or the Tanakh, or the Torah, or the guide, right? Ancient writings, some of you would say allegorical writings, whatever the case might be, that it means that if everybody's not the same, every culture is not the same, every thought process is not the same, it means that if we don't look at this properly, then we have to say that this is not going to be written the same for everybody. So we have to look at the culture. There's a word called interpretation. Interpretation. Right? What does interpretation mean? If we can start there, there's a word called interpretation. What does interpretation even mean? Somebody says, I interpret the word as thus and such. What does that even mean? A lot of people talk about how they interpret things. Question once again, what does it mean? What does interpretation mean? See, somebody says, how do you perceive? And maybe we can go with that. But I want to come, because we're going to be cultural and we're going to be lawful. Kingdom law, marital law, universal law, natural law, law of attraction, law of first mention, procedural law, remedial law, common law, the list goes on and on, public law, private law, admiralty law, law of equity. You said interpretation, the breakdown of things. So we're going to go back to some lawful stuff and ancient interpretation, because if we're going to talk about an ancient text, then we got to talk about ancient interpretation. How you doing, Minister Selection? I'll tell you how you doing, Alien Aphrodisiac. Thanks for being on. Right. So if we're going to talk about these things, we got to first lay the ground rules. How you doing, Sister Tracy? We got to lay down some ground rules. So interpretation is key. Understanding comes from interpretation, because understanding, literally, we stand under a standard. We are under a standard. When you stand under a flag and you put your hand over your heart or you salute, you are doing what? You are under a standard. That flag is bigger than just what you think. That flag is supposed to have interpretation. That flag means something. You said, how do you send out information in your own way of thinking? I'm on. Well, so watch this. So peep game. Interpretation, lawfully speaking, we got to be lawful. As much as people run away from law, we got to be lawful. Interpretation, lawfully speaking, is simply making sure, well, I won't say simply, it's not simple, but interpretation, something cannot be interpreted unless it is in the language. We represent exactly what the person said. We look at the culture the person was in. We look at the time period the person was speaking in. Right. And we have to make sure that we are utilizing, the environment and what was that person specifically directing, because there's a difference between interpretation and application. How you doing, Sister Betty? There's a difference between what? Interpretation and application. A lot of us heard me say that. I'm going to say it again, though, because we always have people that are coming on for the first time. There's a difference between what? Interpretation and application. How you doing, Sister Mary? So if there's a difference between interpretation and application, well, what's the big deal? Interpretation means that I'm taking exactly what somebody said and I'm using it exactly the way they said. Application is I know exactly what they said and what they meant, right? And I'm going to apply it to my life. A lot of people say that they interpret something, but really they're applying something without knowing fully how to interpret it. Okay, for example, if I said, this is an example we use very simply all the time. If I said, I love my queen, right? I love my queen. Matter of fact, let's write this out. If I were to write out, I love, I'm not sure if you're going to see this because this marker is going out on me, but we're going to attempt to use it as long as we can. I love my queen. Oh, I'm sorry. On TikTok, I got to do a mirror image. On Facebook, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see it or not. It might show up backwards, but I think you'll be able to at least see part of what we're doing. Oh, my bad. Hold up. What are we trying to do? There we go. All right. So if I were to say, I love my queen, right? I love my queen. If I were to say that to you, I love my queen, that should be interpreted as I love my queen. Pretty simple, right? I'm talking about, I am talking about the queen, but I specifically told you it's mine, right? Now, somebody might hear that message based upon, like, let's say the theme, the motif of the message I'm giving is I love my queen. Somebody might hear that message, like the message a lot. They go back to their friend, and their friend says, man, what's up with you? You said, man, I'm really fired up. I was listening to this dude named Kofi. He was talking all this stuff, and he was talking about how he loves, his love and stuff like that for his wife and all that. And they were like, yeah, well, what did he say? And they talk about, and it's like, well, he was talking about how like all queens deserve love and stuff like that. And although I agree with that, I would believe in that, I would do that, but that's not what I was talking about, was it? Right? Oh yeah, most definitely the exclamation point, right? I love my queen. So the interpretation, if you say that I said I love all queens, even though I do, but you're putting a different thing, because I was focused on what? My interpretation, how you got to interpret my whole message is based off of my relationship with mine. Now you can apply that to your relationship, apply it to what you want. You can apply it to where you want to go. But I didn't say all because that wasn't the focus. I was specifically, so if I'm talking about my queen, or what? Yeah. You said it can be interpreted as sarcasm or sincerity. Well, you can say that the problem with that is, though, in order to interpret that technically, you have to be able to either be there and hear me say it. You have to look at my life to be able to interpret, okay, like, do him and his wife, do him and his queen have a really strong relationship? You have to use other things to interpret it, because interpretation needs to be exactly what I meant at the time. So sure, like if I was beefing with her and if I was in my sarcasm mode, which I have a sarcasm mode, right? So, but if I was beefing and have a sarcastic moment, then if I went into sarcasm mode and you were there and you saw it, if I said I love my queen, then somebody would say, yeah, you can't take that the way you think it is, because if you read stuff, it seems kind of weird. He was mad, he was angry, he's frustrated at the time. You could read the documentation and further interpret it, right? But you'd have to interpret it the way that I said it. However, I didn't just say it in sarcasm, right? So I specifically am talking about I love my queen, and there was no sarcasm attached. So the sarcasm thing, you could say, I could apply it in a sarcastic manner. Somebody could take what I said and they could apply it in a sarcastic manner, but you wouldn't be able to interpret it as sarcastic. Right? Like that's the difference. So you're absolutely right. There's a difference between interpretation and application. We got to lay that ground rule, because a lot of people are talking about interpretation, and I'm going to show you some things. I'm going to give you some words. I'm going to tell you some concepts today. And the first thing people are going to do is they're going to fight without knowing when this was written, how it was written, why it was written, what do these things mean? Before we can talk about creationism, evolution, whatever it is, you got to first realize the context of that which you read. And a lot of people don't know context. Here we teach about contextual facts. We don't give context without facts. We don't give facts without context. You got to have contextual facts. How you doing, Lashandra? Right? We have to have contextual facts. How you doing, Sister Sheena? So we want the context and we want the facts. How you doing about it? So I love my queen, is how I said that. I didn't say I love all. Now, somebody else take that and say, he loved all queens. And he says he does this for his wife, and he takes his wife here, and he takes his wife there, and they go on this walk, and they do this, and blah, blah. And it's like, I was talking about my queen. What if your queen don't like that? Hey, brother Oakley, how you doing? What if your queen don't roll like my queen does? And you start doing stuff for your queen. What if your queen doesn't have the same love language my queen does? Both queens want to be they want to feel secure. Number one need of a woman, 99.9% of the time, is going to be security, right? But what if what makes my queen secure doesn't make your queen secure? You got to be careful not to take interpretation and say, I'm going to apply it incorrectly. And that's what happens with a lot of people, right? For example, right? In our culture, when we talk about, if you want to talk about creationism, we got to lay some ground rules out. Creationism, people are going to talk about a firmament. And how you doing, Ebony? Thanks for being part of the community today. People are going to talk about a firmament. Is a firmament something that's actually from the culture of the people who wrote the Bible, or is the firmament from a group of people who changed the Bible? Did y'all catch that? And how you doing, Prince? I see you, Henry. Exactly. All right. Let me say it again. See, you'll hear somebody talk about a firmament. But is a firmament from somebody who wrote the Bible? Thank you, Sister Betty. Right? Is the firmament from somebody who wrote the Bible, or is the firmament from somebody who changed the Bible? Thank you, Des. Appreciate it. Same back to you. It's the latter. It's from somebody who changed it, because the firmament has nothing to do with Yashreel, with Israel, with Avra, who came before Israel, or Hebrew, that came before there was even an Israel, or Adam or Eve. Like, there's no such thing as a firmament. The firmament comes from somebody else's religiosity. They're other somebody's religion. It wasn't even a translation, right? It's a misappropriation. Now you can see even translations. Somebody talked about a translation earlier. I apologize. I just realized I skipped it. I didn't mean to. And if I don't get to your questions right away, we have a Q&A box. I think it's, you can look on the bottom, click on, I think it's an interact box. It used to just say Q&A, but you can just put a question in there. And if I miss your question, I'm a human being. So I do have faults. I do miss things. If I miss it, especially on TikTok, I can go back and revisit it when I have a chance. Right. But here's one of the things that we don't talk about. Right. So that translation piece, when people translate it, they're not interpreting. They're taking from one culture and they're trying their best to make you comprehend it in another culture. Like, for example, I cannot say in Spanish, red shirt, in a manner that interprets exactly what I'm saying in English. It's impossible. I can try all day, but I cannot. Something as simple as red shirt, right? I cannot do it because you don't say red shirt in Spanish. You would say shirt red. We'll get to Moses in a little bit. I'm not sure if Moses is going to pop up, but I got to kind of get through this ground rule thing just a little bit if you give me a little bit of time, right? You cannot say in Spanish red shirt the same way that you would say in English red shirt, or else, right? So when I translate red shirt from English to Spanish, I have to completely reverse it in order to make it work in Spanish. I have to take it from one culture to another. That's how language works. Language is based upon your culture. It doesn't mean that the person means any harm in Spanish, right? It just means that they can't have red shirt operate the same it does in their culture. What do I mean by that? So if you don't know, just in case, like most of us know kind of basic Spanish, but just in case, like red shirt in English is how you say it. And so in Spanish, red is roja, or rojo, depending on masculine or feminine. But since shirt is camisa, if it was t-shirt, it would be camiseta. But since it's shirt, it'd be camisa. So since red shirt is camisa, right? Since it's camisa, then what does that mean? That means that camisa, I have to, I have to say, if I said roja camisa, somebody might know what I'm talking about, but they'd be like, you're speaking backwards. You're speaking like Yoda. Oh, amen. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it, right? How you doing, Big Bad Wolf? The Sabu kids could say it like that. Roja camisa. Oh, okay. I'd have to look them up. I'm not even 100% sure how that works or what you're talking about. But thanks for bringing it to my attention. You said most time people only interpret what resonates with them as a whole. Exactly. That's why we're going to talk about it, right? So somebody's translating, right? And what they're doing is they're doing it. If somebody were to translate that, they can't translate correctly if they don't change the wording or change the culture, right? For example, when you have all these translations, I'm sorry, so let me finish up. So in Spanish, I would have to say it in correctly in Spanish, I have to say the reverse of English. So I can't say camisa, I'm sorry, roja camisa, I have to say camisa roja, right? That's the only way that works correctly in Spanish. So in order to say it correctly in Spanish, I have to actually say it incorrectly in English. You catch what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff that happens to where there's a mistranslation, or it's not even mistranslation, it's just translation, but translation is not the same as interpretation. Right? There's a lot of stuff that gets missed. Same in French, en français. Okay. Yeah. So the same thing, right? So you have to be aware, right? When you're talking about the chemise en français, the same thing, right? Chemise rouge or rouge, right? Like you have to be aware that if I'm translating something, what I'm saying is I'm taking it from one culture where it works and I'm trying to make it sense in another culture. But here is the problem. If we're talking about what we'll call today, biblical context, there's a culture that we're not supposed to change. In order to read it correctly, you have to know exactly what it says. If you want to then translate it, fine. But the problem with translations, so think about how many translations there are. King James Version. There's another King James Version, New King James Version, English Standard Version, Amplified Version, even 1611 King James Version, the original King James Version, whatever it is that you're reading, right? Guess what? All these different things that you're reading, English version, English Standard Version, New English Standard Version, new version, whatever it is, right? New World Translation, new version of the New World Translation. They are all versions, and you think that they are actually all proper translation, which they're not. But even if they all were, it doesn't mean that they're saying exactly what they're supposed to say. It means that they're trying their best to take a context and give it to you the closest they can in your language. But even in your language, there's certain words you don't know because even some of those are based off of ancient languages, right? Ancient versions of your own language. But allow me to give you a couple of things before we start writing some stuff out on the board. If I were to tell you that you need to get a different version of the Bible, or you want to buy up as many versions of the Bible, do you think that they write different versions of the Bible because they're led by the Holy Spirit? Like a big game of telephone, exactly, right? Do you think, like real talk, do you believe that the reason why there's so many versions of the Bible and why they sound so different is because they're led by the Holy Spirit? Some people believe that, but that's not the real reason. Because, see, you don't understand law. I'm not even saying, because some people do it with malice, like intentionally full of malice, full of Nicolaitan type doctrine where they're trying to change things, right? But right, so they're not giving you proper interpretation. But here's the real deal. Legally speaking, how you doing, Minister Tamara? Just on a basic level, legally speaking, that's why law is important. Even knowing the difference between law and being legal. It's unlawful to change the word of Yah, but it is legal to change the word of Yah. Now, why is it legal? What do you have to do legally speaking to be able to put your own Bible out? If you want to make money from the Bible, by the way, that's a life's work. I don't even know how much. I'm thinking about doing something throughout my life. I don't know how many years it's going to take me to actually try and see if I can get to a like original translate or as close to like a great translation in English to what is actually in the zarah or the word, the seed, the Tanakh, the Torah, right? Like that's an extremely long point of your life. That's why a lot of people come together, 60, 70, 100 people sometimes come together to try and get that thing done, right? They're led by prophet, but I'm telling you that like it's fine, but I'm saying before we even get to the sinister part, legally speaking, you cannot have your Bible out there, have it printed, right? And put out there or whatever, and have it copywritten and all that jazz. You cannot have it done unless you change 10% of the words. It is not legal. How you doing, Sister Beverly? It is not legal to do so. A lot of people don't know that. So a lot of times there are people that have great intent. You said you feel through different races and cultures, linguistics, and the application. You don't know what to believe. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So that's why we have to go back to the people who wrote it, which is why it's important. People want to tell you it doesn't matter who wrote this, doesn't matter what the people were, where they lived, how they spoke. It is extremely important because you got to get interpretation, right? So if somebody has to, by law or legally, right, be able to, in a sense, patent, right, or own this version of what they're putting out, then legally, that means that they have to change 1 out of every 10 words just to get it before you. So like when the teachers tell you, use your own words, no plagiarism. Yeah. Like, so so we're supposed to give you a word that in a sense is plagiarized because it's supposed to be word for word what it means. But the only way to give it to you where you can at least where they can say that they own it in some way, shape, or form and have ownership to make sure people can't just use it however they want. Because sometimes ownership is important just to make sure people can't use whatever you say. That's why a lot of people want ownership over their content, because I don't want you to be able to twist what I'm saying or doing, or if you do, or if you try to put my song or something, if you try to attach the words that I'm speaking to something that I don't want to be attached to, I can call you out and I can say, hey, like, not only do you owe me money, but you will never use that again. Right? So ownership is important. Like, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have ownership over works that they do, but the problem is we're supposed to plagiarize, but you can't have ownership and protect what you are plagiarizing. So therefore, you have to, at least legally, you can't. So guess what you have to do? You have to make sure that you actually take it and shift it. And then once you shift it, then you can give it out to people. You said you heard in Japan, you think they were going to take things out to make it more inclusive. Oh yeah, that happens with everybody. That happens with everybody. I've seen it. I don't speak Japanese, but I've seen it. I saw somebody talking about it. China, they're trying to get back to the original because a lot of people don't know that China used to worship Shangdi before they were introduced to a lot of the religiosity that you know to be Chinese now. And the theology that they use, they used to worship Shangdi. Shangdi was their version of Elohim or Elohim. And they believed in Noah and Shem and Ham and Yaphet or Japheth or Yavat rather, and Japheth, right? And all this stuff. And they believed in the flood, and they had scriptures. Matter of fact, if you look at their characters, even the modern characters, they still have stuff that like gives away the fact that they believe in the Bible, right? That's why it's a big deal that they kill off a lot of biblical believers over there. Because you got to have a genetically modified version of everything. If you don't genetically modify it, or if you don't modify whatever you're reading, talking about, eating, etc., you can't own it. You can't patent what you haven't placed, or you can't patent what you haven't modified. Shalom, Ms. Mack, how you doing? So it is extremely valuable and extremely important for us to recognize how this stuff works. So an example of this, going back to when we're talking about firmament, people don't know that the firmament has nothing to do with the people who wrote the Bible. Right? Well, hang around long enough, we'll probably discuss them taking out books and things like that, but we're laying some ground rules first, right? So a lot of people don't recognize that firmament is not anything having to do with the Bible at all, but it's in your Bible. Interesting. A lot of people just don't know this. And thanks for sharing the live. Thank you, everybody, for the love. Appreciate it. The likes, the shares, all that great stuff. A lot of people just don't have a clue that you're dealing with somebody who's taking your culture and trying to change it, right? But the word firmament was never part of our people. Matter of fact, now that I've said that, a lot of people, some of you have been with us long enough, so you already know the answer to this. However, like, where does firmament even come from? Where does firmament even come from? If the children of Israel, who are supposed to be the people who wrote this documentation for us that we're discussing today and that we're going to focus on in our Genesis Revisited series, right? Well, before we even get into versions of the Bible, stuff like that, I'm trying to tell you, you got to know the culture, because the culture will help you to be able to see if a version is any value or not, right? What I want to say is, once again, do you recognize, do you realize, do you even think about what a firmament is, or do you just say it because somebody said say a firmament? What'd you say? Sister Dawn, legally change 10%, lawfully don't change Yep, one jot or tittle, exactly. Difference between legal and lawful, right? But a lot of people don't even know. If I were to ask the average person, what is a firmament? They would tell you, I don't know. Maybe a small percentage would say, oh, that's supposed to be that thing that's over us, that's a firm substance. Somebody else who had a little more knowledge might even say, isn't that in the Bible? Or, that's a biblical principle, right? But that's not true. How you doing, Sweet Pea? Thanks for being part of the community. It's not true. Firmament is actually a Greek god or a Greek deity. That's what the firmament is. Why is it that you have a Greek god in your Genesis, in your beginning? How do you put a Greek god in a book that says that there's no Elohims, there's no gods, there's no netures, there's no deus, there's no deity, there's no spirit that's on the same level as him? Unless we got a problem where that's not what the book of Genesis says. But and how you doing, Minister Select Joseph? How do you deal with that? See, we got cognitive dissonance. We got to rectify the situation. We got to be willing to go into honest conversation, honest assessment of these things. Well, you are talking about a Greek god or a Greek deity, but you're telling me that your reading of the Bible is accurate. Something don't make sense. A lot of people don't even know. You're talking about a firmament and trying to describe it. So now am I describing the firmament from a Greek position or a Greek spiritual conversation, or from a spiritual conversation of the people who wrote the book, which is Israel? See, now it gets important because who Israel is important. We got to set some ground rules. Because we're not saying that everybody who's Israel, if you're not part of Israel, if you're not part of whatever I say Israel is, it means that you're going to hell. It means that you can't go to heaven. It means you can't comprehend it, because that's not what we're saying. The Bible doesn't even support that. Right? That's not what we're saying at all. And how you doing, Michael? Thanks for being part of the community. Right? Or I am Michael Bain. Right? But that's not what we're doing today. I never do that. There are people who say that they believe in what I believe in who do that, but that's not what I'm doing. But I must be honest with you. If we're going to have interpretation, you got to know who the people are. And hey, if I'm one of the people, and hey, if I can even trace who I am, and hey, if I can even tell you where I come from, and hey, I can tell you that I've seen some of the things that y'all think that we just make up, and hey, I can even give you the maps and different things throughout history people do, and I can give you the books that were written as Israelites read them. I can tell you about Flavius Josephus and Olaudach Equiano, and I can tell you about all these different people that you can read up till this day. I can show you where to go look up the scrolls till this day. Then maybe, just maybe, the interpretation is there for us, but nobody is teaching us interpretation. They're telling us to value misinterpretation, to value translation, or even mistranslations. They're telling you to value somebody's application if it's interpretation, but we need interpretation. How in the world have I been reading the Bible, right? This is how a lot of people present it to me. And this is how I thought myself when I started really digging into this. How in the world has somebody presented me a Bible, preaching me Bible, telling me I got to be this, telling me I got to be a good Christian? Like, I'm not a Christian, right? But people saying you got to be a good Christian and this and that and all these things. Why is it that I've been sitting in pews my whole life and Nicolaitans doctrine, and nobody ever wants to introduce to me the fact that they say that this God, right? Because God and Elohim are two different beings, right? But they tell me that this God that I'm supposed to worship is supposed to be without any equal, and yet you literally have a God in verses 6-8. How do you do that? You literally tell me that no other spirit should be lifted up in front of our Elohim, and yet you are legit teaching me on a daily basis every day that it's okay to have a false deity in place of Elohim. Every day. Nobody corrected it. Exactly. My wife says the victor controls the narrative, right? To the victor goes the spoil. That's why you don't want to be victorious, because victors are not great people. Victors are people that literally come, they lie, they commit genocide, then they have a parade in which they have a triumph, and they make sure that everybody watches in the parade as they kill off the very people who they kill off the remainder of the people that they've gone, and then they change the story of what happened. People talk about be a victor, not a victim. Victors make victims and then tell you not to be victims. And you've been in victimhood. Thank you for the compliment, Sean. Appreciate it, right? You've been in victimhood. Yeah, I hear you, Jen, right? And that's why we got to be honest. I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. You got the thing over the end. Is it Jen or something? I'm not sure. But thanks for being on with us, right? But a lot of people don't recognize and realize what's going on. So you literally have a deity in the Bible that is against the Most High. And yet, okay, it is Jen, okay. So you literally have a deity in the Bible that's against the Most High. And yet you're telling me that I should trust what you have to say. Something's off. Either the Bible's a lie. Like, let's just give some honest assessment, right? I had to go through this myself. I became agnostic when I started learning this stuff. I wasn't born and raised in the church, but I was raised in the Bible. However, I became agnostic for a while because you got to make that make sense. Either the Bible is a lie, right? You a lie, you ignorant, I'm ignorant, we ignorant, or we just don't know the culture. Yeah, when the math don't math, right? Something's up. You said I'm talking about Uranus as the firmament. Um, no, so what? So the story of how everything gets put together, the original story, because really, if we be honest, if we go back to times, not everybody was Greek together, correct? Like you had different tribes or what you call different even cities. Now we call them city states and all these different things. But you had different tribes and stuff that were together, right? So you had the Spartans, you had the Athenians, et cetera, et cetera. But eventually they came together. When they came together, they started to write all of these different people together and they put them in a book. And they said, all right, we're going to make this the new standard for what everybody is so that for generations, we'll use this religiosity to make sure that we're together as one. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Right. So that's what they did. Right. And so when they did that, they said, we're going to start off like this, which is where you get your Big Bang from. If you believe in the Big Bang, they said, we're going to start off like this. In the beginning, there was absolutely nothing. Right. Sound familiar? They said, we're going to teach that in the beginning, there was absolutely nothing. Okay, I guess I'm with you. What's the next part? Then out of nothing came Gaia. Bang. Thanks for being part of community anomaly, right? Global anomaly, excuse me. Right? So in the beginning, there was nothing. All of a sudden, bang, Gaia's in existence. That's where you get your Big Bang from. I know you think that that's just scientific, but it's religious. It's like when you use the term atoms. You know why a lot of y'all think atoms are the smallest? We're blown away. You know why you guys were blown away with all the CERN stuff and all? Y'all didn't know we didn't know how to discern CERN and all these different things. How you doing, Red Flow? You know, the reason why we had an issue with all those things is because if we didn't know how this stuff worked. This is cultural. This is all cultural. It starts with culture. We got to lay down some ground rules before we can go deep into this. Before we go into this Genesis Revisited series and we focus on Genesis 1 and 2, thank you, babe. Appreciate it. I see it. Before we go into all that, y'all got to make sure that you comprehend this is cultural, baby. Baby boy, baby girl, this is cultural. How you doing, Seed Planner? Like you don't realize this is a culture. You think that an atom is the smallest thing, or at least you did. Some of you who caught up finally realized that there's been things smaller than atoms for quite some time. But, you think in your mind that an atom is the smallest thing. You know where you got that from? You got that from Greek philosophy, which is really Greek religiosity, which is basically theology, where there was a guy who thought that basically atoms was a small. He said that atoms are the smallest things that exist and that everybody's made up of. And so when they found something small enough, they called it an atom, not based off of the fact that it was actual science. They just called it that because some guy told them religiously that's what they were seeking. And so since they're very Greco-Roman, we're very Greco-Romantic, a lot of us who are still decided to be part of this system, this world, the word world is even coming from the Greek word, how we use it today, cosmos, K-O-S-M-O-S, meaning a system. Right. And then the cosmos with a C, C-O-S-M-O-S, is the physical. So we see the physical and the system through the prism of Greco-Romantic culture. And so somebody said a long time ago, thousands of years ago, somebody said, hey, everything that ever existed is made up of atoms. That's the smallest things that exist. So that was the smallest they can get to at a time. They get called them atoms because that's the religion that they're part of. I know you think this is science they're part of, but it's just as religious because it takes as much faith to believe in some of the things that they tell you as it does to some of the things that we tell you. Sometimes they have to have more faith than we do because even mathematically speaking, it's actually less mathematically possible for a Big Bang to happen than it is that there's a creator of the universe. Right? Like it actually takes more. I didn't come up with that. I'm talking about scientists, mathematics, right? Who would then say that they're scientists that use mathematics and all these different things, chaoticians, all these different things that you've heard before, whatever. Like these people will tell you that it's mathematically more possible that the Most High created everything than it is that things just came from nothing. Like if we believe it's nothing, it's a physical nothing, but the nothing manifested from a spiritual place. There's more probability mathematically that happened than it is that everything just exploded, which is why they can't explain the Big Bang theory correctly. And the theory keeps stretching and changing and morphing because there's not really anything that can back it up. But they didn't get it. You think they got it from a scientific place. They got it from Greco-Roman theology. Thanks for the love. Appreciate it. That's where they got it from. You think they got it from whatever. No, they got it from what? You think they got it from science and studying. No. It's a religion. It's a religion. Thanks for being part of the community, Kiki. Appreciate it. It's a religion. So go back. So once again, so Gaia is, so there was nothing, then Gaia was the Big Bang. Right? After Gaia comes into existence, she out of herself gave birth to is it Neptune? I think she gave birth to Neptune, and she gave birth to firmament. Right? That's what was said. And thanks for being part of the community, Lewis Johnson. Right? That's what was said. Gaia, there was nothing. So these Greek, before they were considered to all be Greek, you had all these tribes. These tribes fight against the Persians. The Greeks began to come together. They then change all of these beliefs and they say, okay, you guys believe in this Gaia, and you guys believe in this person named Zeus, and you guys believe in Apollo. And sorry, I'm getting my language mixed up. Sorry. You guys believe in Apollos. You guys believe in Pegasus. You guys believe in da. Okay, we need to figure out how to make all these things work together. You guys believe in Heracles, who you guys now call Hercules, but it was actually Heracles in the Greek and all that stuff. You believe, we got to figure out how to make all this stuff work together so that everybody will still keep teaching that we need to come together as one. Religion brings people together. Unfortunately, we don't want to have religion. Once again, religion is religion, what a legion of people do repetitively, but you don't know what the religion is. So you don't come together, or you don't know the culture behind it, so you don't come together. So, but Gaia gives birth to two sons, Neptune and firmament. A bikini bottom. Yeah, there's two King Neptunes, right? But right, the movie version and the show version, there's actually some very interesting stuff that pops up with him in there. But they throw that in there, and so even in your childhood or your children's childhood or whatever, they're watching SpongeBob, and you don't even realize that they're getting Greek mythology, and so it's going to be easier for them as they go up because they're being introduced to culture. It's going to be easier for them to start adopting the culture to a point to where it's tearing our community up and our humanity up. But Gaia gives birth to who? She gives birth to Neptune and to firmament. And then Gaia has sex with her own son, Neptune. And Neptune and her give birth to what will eventually lead to the deists or the deities or the spirits or the gods that will be made on earth. Right? And also to the Titans, some other things like that. So because of the waters above and below? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Neptune. Yeah. Actually, I never thought about it that way, but there you go. Actually, that's an amazing thought. That's something to be studied. I like it because you have oh wow. I've never seen that before, Minister Tamara. You just messed with my mind. Like you're right. That makes sense. Right? That's them trying to explain the pulling, because they knew this stuff happened. Everybody believed in the same stuff happening and how the earth was formed. We're going to go over that in these next few weeks. But yeah, I never thought about that. That makes perfect sense. I'm going to do some study just to make sure, but it makes perfect sense because Neptune is on day 2, right? When the firmament is separated from what? For the waters underneath. Neptune's down here. Firmament is up here. And they both came out of Gaia. I've never seen that. Wow. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. See, and see, you got that because we've been studying culture for so long, and we've studied this for so long, and we've said it so many times that it finally clicks because it's in culture. That makes perfect sense. That's a that's a moment for me, right? I got to keep on going, but that's a moment that's going to keep me up later, right? Later tonight, and trying to do some research and stuff. But yeah, right? Like, but that's them trying to tell you their version of what really happened. And that's what I said. Like, if you look at China, China has words. Like, for example, in China, China has in their pictographs or in their characters, if you will, but in their pictographs, if you were to try and write out the word family in ancient times, and I think in modern times as well, you had to write out 8 people on a boat in water, and you had to put all of them and put them together. So we don't recognize that when they put words together, they actually just put characters together. So when they put family together, why would they put 8 people in a boat and water together? It's because originally they believed once again in Shangdi. Shangdi is supposed to be there for be the same as Elohim. So they worship Yahweh, and they believed in Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, and therefore that was that basically like, and they have temples. You can still see them today that aren't built the same, but they're supposed to mirror the same thing as far as the inner court, outer court, all that stuff, because that was their belief system. When you get past a couple thousand years of their history, you'll actually discover, like, go back past a couple thousand years, you'll discover they did not believe in Buddhism. They did not believe in multiple things. They didn't believe in sex gods and goddesses. They didn't believe in yin and yang like that. They didn't believe in those things. That was not the belief system that they held, right? But we don't know it. We don't know the culture. Well, we could say bang is intercourse or something like that, sure, right? But that was initially how everything happened. Was the Big Bang was the explosion that happened, and Gaia came out of nowhere. That's a cultural mindset. Now and all that we just said, and I just had my mind blown with a little bit of stuff that was presented to me as well, right? And all that stuff. How many of us would even think like that? Because we don't even think there's anything wrong with the word firmament. We see the word firmament, we just go, oh yeah, whatever. Like, that's just natural. Oh yeah, there's a firmament. But if you believe in the Bible, there is no firmament. See what I'm saying? We got to set ground rules before we go too deep into this. We've got to make sure that before we start talking about this stuff and start going by everything, we got to set some ground rules, because see, without ground rules, without law, without certain things that are there, right? Without certain ground rules and certain things that are there, you'll never know. You'll never know these things. Right? You said, why does it say it was good on every day except day 2? I don't know. I'd have to see that in scripture. I've never noticed that before. Matter of fact, I think it says it was, well, first of all, it didn't even say it was good. That's something that was added, because good and God are the same word. In our culture, we don't have God or gods. We have Elohim. It's a difference. But I'd have to look at that. I don't know. That'd be the first time that anybody's, if I find that, it'll be the first time it was ever presented to me. Let me see. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. See, it's it's an interpretation thing, but we'll get into it. We'll talk about that. But I mean, it's an interpretation thing. People don't know that the word God and the word good are the same word. They're both talking about a spirit that's not even Elohim, right? So if God said it was so, then good said it was so. So it was good just means it was God, right? So it's something that, like, people have taken sermons, because now, if you think about it, see, and that's why we got to set these ground rules, right? You said you're all gods. Well, if you want to be a god, that's fine. I'm not into Germanic deities. I'm not into Germanic deities tied to romantic and Greco-romantic type of mindset or whatever. Like Elohim, it's okay, right? But when it says God in your Bible, that wasn't originally there. That wasn't initially there. That's somebody else's culture. You can be that's one of the reasons why people worship gods or even become gods, because God can be whatever you want. So that's what I'm saying. We had to set ground rules, and I'm not here to argue. Like, you have the right to be able to believe whatever you want to believe. I'm just telling you, from now on, when we go through this conversation, you will know that there's ground rules. You can look them up on YouTube from this point on. You'll be able to see, oh yeah, okay, I guess I see, culturally speaking, like, this is the ground rule. We're not coming from representing everybody else's culture that has manipulated and changed this and shifted this so much that we don't even know something as simple as there was never a firmament there. That word firmament didn't exist. There is a substance, right, that you could say is hard, that's above the earth, but it's called halakwaya. So we can talk about that, because that's actually what was really there, right? That's what was initially talked about. But if you're talking about something somebody made up later on to be able to try and combine a whole bunch of stories from a bunch of tribes when they were trying to get people to become one so that they could become conquerors and have everybody else bow down to them, and so be it. But that's not what I'm doing today, right? So we got to lay down some ground rules, because if we don't lay down ground rules, you can let whatever come in. See how important it is to have this conversation? Right? So, rakwaya, or if you want to put a KW there, because Q actually makes a KW sound. That's why you guys always put a U with it, because they don't know how to go qua, qua, qua. That's where Q comes from. But rakwaya, right? Or rakia, RAKIA if you want. But that's what it was initially called. And I'm not even fully giving out what that means, but we'll get to that when we get there, right? We're going to be doing this for at least a couple weeks. We'll be dealing with just, Genesis 1 and 2. But a lot of people are talking about things that we don't know what it is. You said, what's my interpretation of scripture when it says that ye are gods? Well, once again, God is not an original word that was in there. So I don't look at it as saying ye are gods, because I know that wasn't originally in there. Somebody who believes in gods put that in there. Gods are different than Elohim. But when it says, even when you want to do that with the lowercase g, it's saying that you come from him, but we are not gods. We are not Elohim. We are children of Elohim. And so that really would have said that ye are, and even if it said ye are Elohim, which it more than likely didn't say when you do the research, but even if you want to say you are Elohim, it would have been saying that you are in a symbiotic relationship with him. If he's your father, then you're his child, and therefore the father and the child, although the child has access to whatever the father gives the child, and he grants us a lot of access. However, the child and the father were never fully 100% the same person. They have the same experiences, might even have the same DNA memory. But once again, when you talk about God, you're talking about something that's not your culture. Right? Or at least this culture. There are a lot of people that are about God because, like, watch this. If you're an American, you'll say, God bless America. See, we got to set ground rules. We got to make sure we comprehend what's going on. God bless America. What does God bless America mean? Thank you, D. That's a way of saying, I have great intentions, but I probably don't know what I'm talking about. I appreciate you at least saying that my intent and my heart is righteous, because it is. And I'm not concerned about being right here. I'm concerned about being righteous, specifically when it comes to the culture and the community that actually created what we now call the Biblios of the Bible, even though the word Biblios simply just means a set of books. And they call it that because the island of Biblios, or not the island, but the place called Biblios is where they started making what we now call books. Therefore, a holy Bible is a whole set of books. Yet the Holy Bible, the whole set of books, is missing books. So even in that, but we're having a conversation once again, culture. You got to be able to recognize things. A lot of people are not recognizing it because they're trying to do. But once again, if I were to say, God bless America, what does that actually mean? You said you just joined the live and you're saying a lot of what you don't believe. What is your stance? I'm saying a lot of what I don't believe. What do you mean what I don't believe? You just joined, but you're telling me what I said I don't believe. Or what I'm saying, you're saying I have cognitive dissonance. You got to help me out. That was a very interesting statement, but it doesn't pan out. I know you're only limited in characters you can use, but just help me out a little bit. When you say God bless America, even with God bless the world, fine, whatever, but you hear God bless America all the time. What does that even mean? Let's set some ground. We might have to have a couple sessions just on ground rules, because I can see this is a problem for a lot of people. We can see it. How you doing, Sister Lori? I'm sorry I missed you. Can I explain the basis of what I believe? Okay, that's different. Different. Well, we're explaining it now. We have a whole series on YouTube, by the way, called "Haven't Been Led as We Believe." So if I'm not able to answer those questions during this or whatever, feel free to go there and you can actually look and listen and find out more that I'll probably be able to give you than in a 30-second, mini soliloquy. You said because you said God wasn't part of it and you don't really understand. So God is a Germanic deity made up after Elohim. I don't worship any Elohims or anything that tries to be on his level. So before there was a God, there was Elohim. Before there was a Neter, there was an Elohim. That's what y'all try to call gods in Kemet, but they don't have gods there. Kemetic Neters and gods don't do the same thing. Gods can be whatever you want it to be. Elohim has to be who he is, strict. He has to be lawful. And he cannot come outside of himself. That's why when he swears, he didn't say, like, you know how you say, I swear on my mom, or I swear on my child, or I swear on my grave, or my mom's grave. Y'all say, we say craziness like that. Well, the reason why we say it is because that we know that we're fallible and that we have stuff that's there. Gods are fallible, right? So you could be whatever. Zeus, who's a deity, not even a god, but he's a deist or a deity. He's become a god through people that worship these Greco-Roman tendencies. But when you deal with this stuff, like, and you're talking about Zeus or any of these things, well, let me get back to God. Are you talking about God? Like, gods can change into whatever you want. You said you only believe in God, not institutionalized religion. But what if God was institutionalized? When somebody says God bless America, what do they mean? I see you. Yeah, it was 111, 111. Yeah. What does God bless America mean? See, you're telling me this stuff, but you can't tell me. But see, a lot of people don't know. God bless America is talking about a specific God because gods can be whatever you want. The problem is you don't know who that God is. So God is a creator. I believe there's the creator. So we're talking about, see, that's why we got to set ground rules before we go into this long thing for weeks. We got to make sure the first time up, at least, we might have to do some more. This might have to be a part 2 just on these ground rules. You said the Bible mentions so many gods. Tell me. See, you're talking about, first of all, you're telling me about it when they've changed the words and therefore we're not even in proper interpretation. Number one. Number two, tell me all these gods, because really it's not God or gods, it's Elohim. But tell me all these gods that the Bible mentions. Now, it mentions a bunch of them that you shouldn't worship for certain. If that's what you're saying, I'm with you. But God can be whatever you want. Okay, I'm not see what I'm saying? People don't answer the questions. Help me out. Instead of telling me all this stuff, I'm not saying that God can't your God, because I don't believe in God, but your gods can't bless a bunch of nations and this and that or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that your gods can't do whatever. I'm asking a specific question. When your president, whoever it is, whatever skin color he has, whatever, if he's a Democrat or a Republican, whatever he does, when your president gets up there and finishes his speech every year to make sure that you know where the nation is, right? And everybody claps about it or waits to go to the opposite, network. If it's Obama or Biden, you guys wait for him to finish and you don't like what they said, so you run over to Fox to watch somebody from Congress speak against what he said. Or if you're about Trump or Bush, then you finish watching them speak and you go over to watch somebody on CNN or whatever from in the Senate speak terrible about them. That happens every year, right? They sow discord, literally. Like, right? They literally cause separation. When they say God bless America, what do they mean is the question. How you doing, Trevon? Hopefully everything's going well with you. That's the question. You said you don't care about the presidents. They try to be like gods. That's okay. I don't care either. My question is, when they say God bless America, see what I'm saying? That's why we got to set ground rules before we get into the series, because people can't comprehend. We can't have an actual conversation because everybody's getting lost and everything else. My question to you is, when they say God bless America, what do they mean? You're talking about the universe is a multiverse. That's not even how that works. Uni and multi don't even mean the same thing. But once again, see what I'm saying? Like, we're having all this stuff come up. People are saying, we're going to touch this and touch this and touch this. So allow me to go ahead and bring it back, right? God is George Washington. It's right there. Look, I won't say, well, not born and raised, but I mean, raised a lot of my, I moved a lot of different places all over the world, or not over, all over the states. But God is George Washington. That's who it is. People say, no, no, no. What is the George Washington? And I'm not telling you anything you can't just read. What does the Washington Monument look like? What is the George Washington Monument? What is it? Help me. Help me, since I'm so wrong and everybody's saying I'm terrible in this time. You help me. What is the George Washington Monument? It's not a pyramid. If it was a pyramid, it would be slightly different. It would be even more egregious, but it's actually, well, actually, it would be less sinister, but it would still be just as egregious. But it's what? It's less. What is George Washington? It's an obelisk. See, let's stop running around. Don't run with me. Stay with me. Right? When you go to the National Mall, right? The person who built the White House has an obelisk there. He built the White House, by the way, because watch this, the first 4 out of 5 of your presidents, if you start with George Washington, he's really not your first president. But, if you start with George Washington, the first 4 out of 5 presidents are Virginia slave owners. And he was a slave owner who married a brunette woman. Brunette back then, it literally meant a woman who could pass for white and had Negroid features. He married her because she had slaves as well. Colorism existing and all that stuff, and he married her so that he would be able to double up, took everything from her because it was easier to take everything from her because she was black, or at least black enough to take stuff from, right? Then takes all this stuff, separates a whole part of Virginia, puts a White House on it, right? And has people go ahead and do a contest to see who could build the best manor, and then has slaves go around it. If you go to Washington, D.C. to this day, it don't look like it, but there's a place that you get off on the Orange Line called Foggy Bottom. Come out of Foggy Bottom, and it's swampland, right? It looks nice, but you get bit by mosquitoes. It's swampland. And that was where the slaves went. He was the father of this nation. That's what they try to call him. Thank you, Sister Beverly. You call him the father of this nation. Why does he have an obelisk, though? We might have to have 2-3 parts on just ground rules, because this is going to be hard for people to deal with because they don't want to be honest. We can't have an honest assessment. Can I provide context to the obelisk? That's where I'm saying, right? And all these things people are saying, right? I'm talking about my creator and blah, blah. No. I'm talking about when they say God bless America, what do they mean? George Washington, right? And I'll give you an example of Farrakhan too, just to make it plain, just to make sure that you don't think that I'm just attacking white people, because some people will think that I'm doing that, right? But I'll give you an example of how Farrakhan does this to y'all, right? But the obelisk goes to something that you guys don't pay attention to. If you look on one side, if you've ever been to the National Mall, if you face, I don't even know anymore, what is it? Hold on, I got to get my bearing. If you face the west, right? Yeah, because if I'm going this way, I'm sorry, I'll make this plain. So, because some of y'all ain't from DC or haven't been to DC that much. So if you go to DC and you look, if you're looking up, I believe it's 7th Street. Yeah, 7th Street. You have 7th Street. And so if you're familiar with DC, there's like a place that I used to frequent all the time. It has this big town, or this big sign. You're in the middle of Chinatown and stuff. It's got this big sign. You come out of, what station is that? Gallery Place. Thank you, babe. Gallery Place. You come out of Gallery Place. One of the exits you come out is a big sign. There's the Capitol, where the Capitals play and the Wizards play. And there's like a Starbucks, and there's a McDonald's, and I don't know what stores they have there anymore because they've been changing their stores lately. There's the MLK Library. If you guys are familiar with that area, right? So you walk down. If you're facing up, that's north. If you turn around, like I'm turning towards you, and we make this south, and you keep walking down to the west, you're eventually going to come to the National Mall, right? And to the west of you is going to be the George Washington obelisk, right? To the east of you is going to be the Senate, or the Congress building, where everything went down on the 7th of January 2020, right? 2021. Okay. On top of that building, where the sun rises, that's key to know. Where the sun rises, on top of that building is a goddess. You have a father god and you have a mother god. You can tell me whatever you want, and you can tell me you don't like what I'm saying, but I ain't telling you something you can't experience and read about for yourself, right? And you will see The Pentagon's not even in that area, although I know what you're saying about the Pentagon. Pentagon's somewhere else, right? Pentagon's not even technically in D.C. It's more Virginia, or it's in Virginia, right? But if you're looking down south, right, walking down away from going north, walking away from that sign I just told you about, you'll eventually get to a place and you'll look to your right. You'll be at the National Mall, right? And if you look to the west, where the sun's going to go down on, I'm trying to get you to see this. There's some sexual stuff here that you don't even know. There's some God stuff, some deity stuff that y'all don't even know. And George Washington's monument, the obelisk, I'm going to tell you what that is in a second, is to the west, right? Where the sun's going to go down on. When the sun rises, it's where the Capitol building is. Now, do you know who's on top of the Capitol building? See what I'm saying? That when they say God bless America, we got to set some ground rules before we get into this, because you can't see this clearly, right? Y'all can't see this clearly. And you're mad at, or you get frustrated or whatever. You think I'm just making stuff up. But a lot of people cannot see this clearly. You don't know what I'm talking about. You've never seen it. You never talked about it. You never thought about it. Right? So you think this is just an accidental thing. These things were put up there. Right? More important than who I pray to, I've already talked about Alacham, Yahweh, etc. Right? Yashva, Ravach HaKodash, etc. I'm not like hear what I'm saying. Get with me, right? George Washington, sun goes down to the west. Congress building, sun rises in the east. Who's on top of the Congress building? Follow me just for a second, please, if you don't mind. I'm trying to make sure I give you something that you probably never seen. Who's on top of that Congress building? How you doing, Longfellow? Thanks for being a part of the community, Maya. Appreciate it. Not necessarily Firmament's mother, right? Even though we were talking about those things today, that's Gaia, right? But who's on top of that Congress building? It is the goddess Columbia, the deity, the deus Columbia. Exactly, it is Columbia, right? You said, no, I got you. Now you have me. Is not his name they created. So I don't know his name. Well, okay, whatever. That's not even what I'm talking about. And we can get into that as far as Yahweh, Achaba, Yashvai, Ravach HaKodash. You don't know what I'm talking about, but I'll write it out for you in a little bit. But we got to set ground rules, right? So if you're already anti everything I'm saying, that's fine. I'm not here to once again be right. I'm here to be righteous. If you believe everything I'm saying is wrong, you don't have to partake or be in the series. But hear what I'm saying. So you have Washington to the west with the obelisk that something goes down upon the sun, right? And you have what? You have on the opposite end to the east, something rising up where you have Columbia. Now, why is it important that the sun is rising from that position? The goddess of Columbia has wings. See, this is why you need to know. This is why we got to revisit Genesis. I'm going to end by giving you something and writing it out today and actually showing you how you're supposed to write this stuff out, because you're arguing stuff that I can tell that you don't even know how to write out what it was actually written as. But you're arguing about the stuff that I'm talking about. And I promise you, like, just hang in there long enough at least to see what I'm saying. Right? And thank you for those who are joining up with us. We appreciate you. Thanks for being part of the community. So this story that you think, when they say God bless America, you don't even realize what you're talking about. Hear what I'm saying? You don't even realize what you're talking about, right? But they're going back to Netjers, not gods, but Netjers. Why is it important to go back to Netjers? Because Netjers is when you talk about Kemet, or what you guys try to call today Egypt, but Egyptians are not Kemetic people, right? And in the days of Kemet, there was Osiris and Isis and Heru, or who you call Horus. They even show, my wife is saying, even in the movies, they show Columbia, right? Columbia Pictures with the wings, all that. That's who's on top of that Congress building, right? I'm on the point right now, brother. I'm on point right now. So when you get to over in Kemet, right? When you get over to Kemet, you get to a place where what? You get over to Kemet where you have Osiris and Isis. Here is the story. Now, what is again? Remember, Washington, sun's going to go down on Washington, right? and he's as an obelisk sticking out the ground. You have Columbia, the sun's going to rise with Columbia, go over you and hit noonday. Noon literally is when the Kemetic Neptune noon would be above you, right? And then it's going to go from noon at its highest point, and then it's going to come down on Washington. Here's the story that it comes from when they say, God bless America. Osiris, main Netzer, other Netzers don't like him for whatever reason. There's different versions of why they didn't like him, but they don't like him. He's married to Isis. Isis is half man, half woman, half bird. They're in a relationship. All of a sudden, one day she's flying around. She realizes that she can't find Osiris. She can't find her husband. She's looking everywhere, but she cannot find him anywhere. Okay, can't find him anywhere. She starts looking around. She realizes that they've killed Osiris. The other Netzers have come together. They've killed Osiris, and they put his body all over the place. They've ripped his body apart and put it all over the place. So they killed Osiris, ripped his body apart, put it in all types of different places. She starts looking for his body. She's able to piece together his body, right? But she has one part that's missing that she can't find. What did I just say? She's able to piece together all of his body, but she has one part of his body that she cannot find. Do you know what that part of the body is? What does an obelisk look like? What is that one part of the body? And if my wife's watching, thank you, babe, for the tea. I just realized you put it down. Thank you. What does that part of the body look like? Yeah, like a phallus. Couldn't find his phallus. So she couldn't put them back together. Now, depending on the story or version of the story you're looking at, is Johnson. So I don't know why that made me giggle like a little child. But so depending on what his what part of the story or which version you believe from this point on, either he's supposed to be at this point, he can't come back together, so he's just dead, or he can't come back together. And he's a zombie. But since she can't find his phallus, she creates what you know today as an obelisk, which is basically a mock penis or, a dildo, even if you will, or whatever. And she engages in necrophilia, right? Somebody being a living sacrifice. You see how they shift this stuff up? Y'all don't even know, right? But somebody involved in necrophilia. And so she rides on top of this obelisk and gets impregnated and has Heru. Right? That's how that comes into being, right? So now, right? And so Heru came out of necrophilia. That's what happened. Now, George Washington, he has an obelisk that represents him as the father of your nation. Now, he's not the first president, but that's what y'all call him. That's what they want you to know him as. That's who this God is. God bless America, right? You have Columbia, Washington, District of Columbia. She got the wings and she's going to fly up looking for her, but can't find them. So that every time she can't find them, she can't piece all this stuff together. But hey, the city of Washington is there. Only thing missing out of Washington is his phallus. She can so when the sun rises, she rises up at noon, just like in Kemet at noon. Noon means that the sun is at its highest point. All of a sudden, she finds Washington. She comes down on Washington. She lands on Washington, and what? She lands on Washington, and she's able to produce Heru and all these little babies walking around here, right? All these little babies walking around, all these Americans walking around here. He is your father. That's the way that works. Now, if you say, I still don't necessarily believe in what you're saying, right? And God bless America and all these things, because you're missing it. You still don't want to see it, even though it should be as plain as the nose on your face. Right. But if you still want to say, I don't see that, I don't believe in this or whatever, question for you. What did George Washington die of? Question. See, this stuff is I was telling my family this the other day, that if like you can tell that they lie about this stuff because they want you to believe New York is this place that's always been there. It's called New York. Look at where York came from. You can tell where the people came from. They ain't from here, right? They give it away in the names. This is Alexandria. There's a bunch of Alexandrias, and the real Alexandrians always point to Alexander. They ain't from here. But it was what? It was syphilis. It was an STD. His phallus was falling apart, if not in his case, probably falling off, from what some people say. So he died missing or not being able to use his phallus. Especially he was raping so many women and not cleaning up after himself. Remember, he lost his teeth his teeth were gone when he was 30 years old. He didn't even become the George Washington that y'all studied. He didn't even become that till he was 40. And I'm talking about the one that fought. He didn't become president until he was like in his 50s. Right? So George Washington is supposed to be the father of this nation, died without his phallus. I believe his children died as well, which meant that his seed died. Right? But died without his phallus. I know that for sure. Ends up having an obelisk built, and the very place that he built, that he took from being a Virginia slave owner, then becoming the president, took some of that land, made a plantation, put black people on there, had overseers on there to make sure that the black people started building up what some of the Moors and them taught them how to do and laid out for them. Did all that, right? Died without his phallus, right? Has an obelisk erected. And then every time the sun comes up, you get to see that, hey, Washington, D.C., this great place, Columbia rises just like Isis rose. And even if she can't find that part of her husband, she's always got a place she can land on top of to continue to make children. They telling you a story. You said if what you say is true on Washington, his soul sounds like Cain, lineage devolved. We can get into that a little bit possibly later, right? But, at the end of the day, it's not even what I say is true. Here, we don't believe in giving you facts without context or giving you context without facts. Like, look it up, please, study it, make sure that what I'm saying is true. When you find out that it is, at that point, you got to say to yourself, what am I into? And by the way, I didn't learn that from an Afrocentric person and all the stuff that people try to villainize, even though I don't think you should villainize them. But I didn't learn it from that. I learned it from a white man. A white man that was just he was like getting frustrated with me. He was like, yo, I need you to see this. Like, if anybody should see this, you should see this. If anybody should know that you're on slave land, you should know you're on slave land. If anybody should know why this place is called Chocolate City, you should know why it's called Chocolate City. Because it was chocolate that worked for the establishment and built this country. He was like, if anybody should know this, you should. If anybody should know this, Israel should know this. He was getting on me, and I didn't. And it wasn't that I didn't even want to see it. I just couldn't see it. It took me a minute, but now that I got it, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's a big reason. So we're trying to set ground rules. Like, you guys are talking about God. God is not the same as Elohim. God can be whatever you want it to be. You guys are talking about a firmament. Firmament is a Greek god that had sex with his own mama. I mean, what are we really talking about here? What's really the point of this exercise? Are you more focused on being right or being righteous? Matter of fact, is the book of Genesis really called the book of Genesis? Thanks, babe. Yeah, she said this is the red pill live. Buckle up, right? Is the book of Genesis, if we're going to revisit Genesis, let's set another ground rule. Is the book of Genesis actually called Genesis? Or have you been reading something completely different? Yeah, some of you already know the answer, right? Is the book of Genesis actually called the book of Genesis? How are you going to argue with me about the book of Genesis and you don't even know it's not the book of Genesis? How are you going to argue with me about Exodus and you don't know it's Shemot? How are you going to argue about me if it's Leviticus and then you don't even know it's Vayakara? How are you going to argue about me about Revelation? You don't even know it's Chazon. How are you going to argue with me about Jesus? You don't even know he's Yashrai. I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody. I'm trying to tell you that you're having an argument that you don't even understand the culture. right? Like we got to set some ground rules from the beginning. Like when people talk about the Bible, they don't even know that the word Bible just means a set of books. I don't want you to just know about a set of books. I want you to know about the culture. I want you to know about the culture. The version won't matter once you know the culture. I can read whatever version you put in front of me as long as I know the culture. It's not about arguing over the words. You need to know the culture. You don't even know that God bless America means that you're saying, may George Washington keep on blessing us as he keeps on having sex with Colombia to make sure that he keeps pumping this place full of people that are okay with chattel slavery to be either living the 13th Amendment slaves in prison or 14th Amendment slaves being part of a fake corporation rather than being a free, sovereign, private citizen. Thank you, Sister Carrie, for that. I appreciate it, right? Like, we're not even realizing that. Be in the world, but not of it. Be in the system, but not of it. Here's some ground rules. I'm not talking about what the system says. Here's some ground rules. If you're looking for me to agree with the system, I'm not going to do that. This series is not going to be about that. We're going to have a part 2 probably of this. Prayerfully, we'll get as much of this done as we can today. But I can see, because I knew this was going to happen. And thank you, moderators, for your help. I seen y'all been diligent, right? Like your people are trying to get me to go into a conversation that is not about the culture of the word of Yah. You're talking about something incomplete. If you don't know that the book of Genesis is not even called the book of Genesis, we got a problem. If you don't even know that the book of Genesis is not called the Genesis, and you need to know what it's called, because what it's called is actually what starts off the Bible. The Bible starts off with the actual name of it. When it says in the beginning, it actually means in beginning. If you don't know what in beginning is, how it translates and how to read it, which we're going to work on today, I'm going to put in front of you in a little bit. But if you don't know how to do that, you've already lost. Not to me. I don't care about you arguing with me. You've lost the ability to be able to see the maker of heaven and earth if you don't even know how he started off with what he created. Don't worry about beating me in the argument. I'm just a human being. I'm just a vessel being used. I'm a powerful vessel, as I believe many of us on here are, but I'm just a vessel. I know where my bread is buttered. I know that I just pour, and I know that he's the one that pours me. Right? So I'm not concerned about you beating me in an argument. I'm concerned about the fact that you are arguing things and you don't even know how this culture works. Couldn't tell me about a shut. You wouldn't know about a shut if it was snake, it would have bit you. But we're arguing about things without the culture. It's very crazy. Once again, I was asking for the longest time. I was asking for like 5-10 minutes, y'all. Y'all remember, y'all been on there, right? I was asking for 5 or 10 minutes today. Hey, what does it mean to say God bless America? And people wouldn't even be honest and just say, I don't know. Right? Like they had to argue all these things, bringing all these other things or whatever. Couldn't even tell me what God bless America means. But then you want to tell me about the Bible. And it's because you don't know the culture of the Bible, you don't know what God bless America means. And it's because you don't know about firmament, and because you don't know about Colombia, and because you don't know about Isis and Osiris and Heru, and because you don't know that you're supposed to identify with Heru. People think that they're trying to get you away from Heru, and that's why they gave you the Bible. No, they're trying to get you to identify with Heru so that you won't even comprehend that Yahshua is different than Jesus. To get you to comprehend that a Netzer is different than a God. To get you to comprehend that Alacham is different than a God. We have no clue, and so we're having arguments about these things that have nothing to do with us. Therefore, we lack, what did we start off with today? We lack off interpretations. And going to what you're talking about, our world's info, to go in a little deeper, that's why we always bring up Ephesians chapter 6. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Don't worry about what you see. Don't worry about what you see. Don't worry about what you see, whatever. Don't worry about me. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. That's not the argument. That's not the problem. The problem is not the flesh and blood. We wrestle against principalities. What is a principality? It is an origin. It is a kingdom. It is a kingdom origin. We have messed around and lost what the kingdom is supposed to be showing us. We are a domain. We are trying to live in a domain without a king. We are trying to be kings and queens without a domain. We are trying to worship a king without actually being in his domain, right? If you're outside the domain of a king, then you're outside of his protection. You're in a bad place. We got to set some ground rules today. Hallelujah. Whether you want it or not. Right? Whether you want it or not, we got to set ground rules, because how are you going to comprehend? Once again, how are you going to talk about a firmament and then not realize that a firmament is a Greek god, which means somebody, when they started writing the Septuagint and trying to put versions of it in Greek, it meant they started putting Greek gods in there rather than telling you about Aquia, the thing that actually is above you. They started talking about Greek gods. And they did that because they wanted, like Minister Tamara brought up, they wanted you to know about Neptune. Because that's who came out of Gaia, firmament and Neptune. And Gaia had sex to be able to make sure that things came between firmament and Neptune. So they wrote it in your Bible. It's right there. If you know the culture of where this stuff comes from, they literally put something in there that's not supposed to be in there. And yet you will argue to the death about the firmament, won't you? Because it's in the book. Somebody rewrote it. You don't even know what the book says. You don't even know enough about the culture to say, yo, that don't make sense. Like people will say, what about Lilith? People do that to me all the time. What about Lilith? Because we're going to talk about Genesis 1 and 2. So somebody's going to bring up Lilith. I promise you somebody will. And when they do, they don't even want to recognize it in your Bible, not the one that I wrote. I don't have a version of the Bible that's out, right? So in your Bible that you say that you read, and read your Bible, it'll bless you. It talks about Lilith, and it says that you should have nothing to do with her. But people will ask about Lilith, and I'm like, how are you going to argue something that you're not even in the ballpark? How you gonna argue about? You're not even in the ballpark. That's why we got to set ground rules, right? So let's help you out a little further, because once again we're setting ground rules. A lot of people don't even know what to call Genesis. Did you know? Like a lot of people don't even know what Genesis is actually called. So allow us to at least give you that basic comprehension. We teach some of this in our Hebrew language and in our Hebrew characters class and things like that. But allow me to give you a little bit of stuff, because people swear up and down that they're ready to have an argument about this stuff and they don't know what they're talking about. It's very difficult to say that you know the whole Bible, but you don't know the first word. There's some paganism that's there, but we're usually warned about paganism more so than and pagans, by the way, know it. That's why pagans love Christmas. Who do you think supports Christmas more? Y'all think that Christmas is just a church thing. Pagans love Christmas. Look up the 12 Days of Christmas, that song and everything. Y'all think about the 12 Days of Christmas. 12 Days of Christmas, they were supposed to switch places. Y'all don't even know that. And it was a very pagan thing. So you would have preachers that would become prostitutes and prostitutes that would become pastors. They would switch roles. 12 days, everybody wild out. Goes along with Lupercalia stuff. Some of y'all think about Lent. You don't even know what Lupercalia is. That's when you act like a wolf and y'all just have sex for 40 days straight. Church finally said, y'all wound on a little too much. How about y'all just have one day and then y'all have 40 days to fast from it? And that's where you got the idea of Lent. But that was based off of Lupercalia, where they were just basically getting it in. Everybody was sleeping with everybody, having as many babies as they possibly could. But you call it Lent now because you don't know where it started. And by the way, that's where your Fat Tuesdays, or Carnival, and all these other different things, that's where they come from. Because the Pope was like, yo, okay, have your stuff, be wild, be lascivious, do all that. But then after that, y'all need to purify from it. Not don't have it at all. He was like, okay, go ahead, get it in. He'd be out there with them in the streets. Let's go ahead, let's get this in real quick. And then after that, okay, we got to purify ourselves for 40 days. Why? Because it rained for 40 days? Like, it don't even make sense. See what I'm saying? But when you have no culture, right? But when you have no culture, you don't know. Right? When you don't know your culture, you have no clue. Oh, you're right. Thank you. I apologize. So before we go into this first word, I promise we will, and then we'll get ready to take our lead. But we're just laying out some ground rules, right? Before we get into it, I did mention because I said I didn't want y'all to think that I was just being one-sided and white people evil and da-da-da, because I don't believe all that. But if somebody did something wrong, we're going to point it out. You can say the same thing about Farrakhan. Y'all remember not too long ago when Farrakhan came out and he said, I know my Redeemer lives? Was this 2-3 years ago? And everybody was losing their mind. And I kept seeing people posting all over the place. See, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus is Lord. They were saying all this stuff, right? And I was confused because I was like, y'all think that Farrakhan is a Christian now? Like, it was very weird to me, but that's what Christianity does, right? But Farrakhan, he too, he wouldn't call himself a god, but you guys would basically make him a god. That's what he is. If you guys want to use God the way y'all use it, He did the same. He's doing the same thing that George Washington did. George Washington had more of it done after death, and was regarded as somebody who couldn't tell a lie. Remember, they told you he couldn't tell a lie. He had to tell his father the truth and all that. They don't tell you about the fact that he was raping women and having half babies walking around, and he had syphilis because he had had so much sex, and he lost his teeth because he had no discipline. He was eating candy and sugar all day, every day. But every picture you see of him is as this big, tall guy that's extremely strong, right? Well, Farrakhan, you know why he told y'all, "I know my Redeemer lives"? Did anybody even watch the full video? Or did everybody just watch, the 10, 15 second thing that happened and just say, yeah, Jesus is Lord? Did anybody actually watch what Farrakhan said? See, you don't know. He's made himself into a spirit in front of your eyes. He's allowed himself, like people don't think about the fact, like, and look, I'm somebody who tried NOI for himself. Like, people don't think about the fact that Farrakhan, well, not just Farrakhan. Farrakhan wasn't the first person to do it, but Farrakhan basically, like, here's how the timeline of it. Elijah Muhammad, and this before Elijah Muhammad too, if you want to get into W.F. Muhammad and some of the other things that were affecting them before then. But Elijah Muhammad comes on the scene, changes a lot of stuff, says that white people can't go into Mecca, a lot of foolishness, stuff like that. His son actually ends up being over the Nation of Islam and says, we're going to change it to actual Islam. Farrakhan didn't like that so much, tried to take over once, it didn't work, tried it again, it worked the second time, and now everybody's saying that Elijah Muhammad chose him and all these different things, and how Farrakhan said he was grooming him and all these different things. They don't do Ramadan correctly, nor do they do it at the right time. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. I'm not saying that everything he does is bad, but I'm just trying to tell you, right? But here's the reason why he said that I know my Redeemer lives. If you check out the full video, right? If you check out the full video, right? If you check out the full video, like, you'll discover. If you check out the full, hold on one second, we might. If you check out the full video, what you'll discover is that if you check out the full video, what you'll discover is something a little more interesting. And if y'all give me a second, I'm gonna just move outside real quick. Y'all can see a little bit of the stuff behind me. I think we got everything charged enough where we should be able to do that. But if you check out the full video as I'm talking to you, Farrakhan basically, if you watch some of his other teachings, Farrakhan is saying that he is Jesus. That's what Farrakhan is saying. Farrakhan is saying that he is Jesus. Y'all probably didn't know that, did you? Let's make that salah. Pause and think about that. I'm gonna move everything out here real quick. We'll end outside so y'all we can share some of this experience together. Y'all probably never knew that. Farrakhan was in fact telling you that he is Jesus. A lot of people probably had no clue about that, but that's what I'm sharing outside with you guys a little bit. I'm gonna try and set up YouTube. It's gonna be more difficult YouTube and Facebook to see, but hopefully you guys will be able to see what I see behind me. I gotta set you guys up correctly. I guess I'll go to the steps. Y'all can see the view out here before we get ready to take our leave. Give me 1 second, y'all. I don't know if y'all can see it or not. I think you can. I'll see what you guys can see in a second. Just give me a little bit. I'm trying to set up for you. So Hopefully you can see the view. I feel like on TikTok it's probably pointed down. Oh, you guys can see. Okay. That's all I was worried about. Y'all can see. Facebook, y'all give me a second. Then we're gonna get into this body shot piece. Alrighty, I think we're all right for all these things. But yeah, it's excellent view out here. Share with you with the blessing we've been blessed with. Y'all can see what we're seeing a little bit. Let me see something. I'm trying to get this to where I know you guys can see everything I can see. Got too many platforms on. No, we don't have too many. We praise y'all for it. I'm joking. Hopefully, you guys be able to see. Hopefully, you guys be able to see what I'm seeing. I don't know. We'll find out in a second. I think we got everything together. So, we praise y'all for His nature and His guidance, and His love, and everything He's doing for us. Amen. Well, hopefully, you guys are seeing, right, that we're setting the foundation for you. We want you guys to see how important this is, right? We want you to see how important this is for us to be able to get what Yah wants for us out of this, right? He wants us to see these things correctly, right? And a lot of times we're not able to see these things correctly. We're having conversations that aren't correct, that are incorrect, that are not righteous, that don't sound at all correct. And yet we're arguing with people. We're arguing with people even culturally, right? We're arguing with people who are masters of their environment. It's very difficult to have that type of conversation, to go through those things, because we're not honest about it. How you doing, Cash? You know, we're not honest about it. Yeah, we go like I'm on the West Coast right now, so on the West Coast, I can't really start outside. At least up here, like when you're up in the mountains, like we're not in San Francisco. We're a little outside San Francisco, but when you up here, like it's cold. It's kind of cold now, but I can deal with it. But you try to start out in the dark, in the cold up here, you're gonna be freezing. But thank you guys. Hopefully you guys like it up here. We get to share a little bit of this stuff. Thanks to some help from family. Okay, well, my wife said where we are. Okay, so we'll go ahead and say it. San Rafael. I have to make sure that it's okay. I don't want to share stuff with everybody, but yeah, so we're sharing. We're in San Rafael, great place, suggested by an amazing people, amazing person, especially. We were thankful and grateful to them for helping out. So we're gonna get ready to take our leave in a little bit, but we're gonna finish up and make sure that we comprehend some of these ground rules, at least for today. I'll pray about it because I can see already the ground rules thing is tough, but I hope that we put some ground rules out there, because at the end of the day, this is gonna, if you're not gonna be able to handle me talking about, we didn't even get into the word like that. We haven't even, I'm about to give you the first word. And before I got into the first word today, everybody is extremely frustrated, right? We're about to get into the first word. So this might be tough. If y'all can't handle this, y'all might want to take a break from us for about 2-3 weeks. I don't know how long, but because we just start. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My wife. Oh, you know what? I don't know if I brought it out. I'm glad you said that. She got me some tea. I was drinking inside. I didn't bring it out. My bad. Hold on one second. Oh, here it is. I got it. I just didn't bring it over there. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's important that we get this together. It's important that we recognize what's going on. It's important that we get this. So we're just going to go through the first word. We didn't even really get to go through the first word, but we're going to make sure we give you at least the first word, because a lot of people that don't know what the first word is. So a lot of people were told that the first word of the Bible is in fact Genesis, When it is not, it is actually this word right here that I'm about to share with you. I apologize if you're on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you will more than likely not be able to see this. It will show up backwards. So if you want to take a picture and maybe try to write this stuff out in a different way, or go to our YouTube channel at some point and be able to look at it, you can definitely, or you can switch over to, switch over to TikTok. If you're on the podcast, you won't be able to see this. So hopefully you've seen me do this before. If not, just look for the stuff on YouTube as well. Handwriting is not that great, and this marker's starting to go out some, but prayerfully you'll be able to see. Looks like you should be able to see. All right. Matter of fact, I'll go down a step. It's easier for me to hold it like this for you guys. Oh, wait a minute. Can everybody see on all of the platforms? I think so. All right. So we have this word, barashayat. Y'all see that? Barashayat, or barashat, if we say it fast. Barashat, right? Based off of 6 characters. This is the first word of the Bible. And people don't know what this is. And I'm sorry I can't really see the comments right now, so I'll try to dig into the comments in a second. If you want to take a screenshot, feel free, right? Because I'm going to start moving it around in a second. So if you want to take a screenshot just so you can be aware of it, or you can go back through it later, or you can look at the screenshot and listen at the same time, whatever you need to do, right? But this is the first word of the Bible, first 6 characters of the Bible. We teach Hebrew characters. I'm not going to be teaching Hebrew characters through this. I will use them from time to time, but I want you to at least see that there's some culture to this that we're having conversation about, and many people have no clue what this is. They're going to argue about it, but they have no clue. So, barashat, right? Barashat. We have here barashat. What is barashat? Ba, bet, a, aleph, ra, resh, sha, sheen, ya. Let me do it like this. Sorry. Ba, because Hebrew's right to left, and you can see the other one's left to right. So we have first ba, which is based off of bet, means the son who comes out the right house, right? And it should really be 2 A's, but a lot of times we just say it's A because we kind of know. But I could have wrote out 2 A's. Ba, a, right? So I could have said ba, a, but ba, a. That's the Aleph. Aleph is the first character of the Bible. It represents the Father, right? Ra, this resh here. This is the head. It means the head. Sha comes from sheen. Sha means destruction. Sheen, destruction. Ya, coming from Yod. It literally means what? Ya, coming from Yod. It literally means the hand pushing us in a certain direction. Right? Could be the Father's hand, Son's hand, Holy Spirit hand, your hand, my hand, right? But we'll see what it means in this context, right? Not just facts, but contextual facts. And then last is now it would be ta or tav, but since it's at the end, we don't say ah at the end. If it's the end of a word, we just let it sit there. So ba, or ba'a, ra, sha, ya. Now what are these? Now this is tav, by the way, marked, finished, complete, or even the cross. It represents all of those. You thought the cross was just something that was this Roman Catholic thing, or people try to tell you in Afrocentric cultures, they try to say, oh, well, the cross, they just use that because it's 2 penises and it's a homosexual culture and all those things. No. Before Greece existed, tav. And what's very interesting? They always say the Hebrews didn't have any writing. Moses' writing, the writing that Moses used doesn't show up, but Israel could write. It's a lie to say Israel couldn't write until Moses. That's what they try to say about black people. They try to say about Africans all the time. Hey, Africans didn't even have writing. Yeah, they did. They hid it from you. That's why now, if you go to West Africa, all these writings are popping up, and people are like, where are all these coming from? And they're starting to scan them and bring them back to their families. The families held them away from the colonists because they didn't want the colonists to take everything that they had, and they didn't want the colonists to mismanage and misuse everything that they had. So the writing was out there anyways. But anyways, so what does this mean? If we were to do this correctly, character by character, this is the first word. This means in beginning. We don't have the word the in our language. So there is no word the. So when somebody tries to say the, no such thing. Just in beginning. In beginning. Not in the beginning, in beginning, not in a beginning. You know, people try to say that. No, the Bible didn't say in the beginning. It said in a. But see, if you could make up gods and stuff and you can put a firmament in there, you could also make up words and put them in there too. So you can say in the beginning, in a beginning, in this beginning, in my beginning, and what I feel. No, no, no. Interpret it correctly. In beginning, there's no the. Right? Those who've taken Hebrew characters, you know, if we need a the or going towards or new thought or something like that, we say at. We say and. Basically, we translate it to and. So if anything, it would have said barashet at or at barashit or and in beginning. But that's not what it says. It says in beginning. And in beginning is the bit, aleph, resh, shin, yal, tav. That's how we say it in modern Hebrew. We taste it like that so that if you learn or hear modern Hebrew, you can sound stuff out. However, it really would be like bait, alav, rash, shine, yavad, tav, right? But bit, aleph, resh, shin, yal, tav. What does that mean? That means the son who comes. This is the first word of the Bible. Not this. So this is a prophetic word. This is an eternal word. If you believe in the Trinity, this should be something that you know. If you believe that the Son came, that Yahshua came to die for you, this is something you should know. If you are a Christian, this is something you should have been taught, but you weren't taught this, were you? But what does it say? The Son who comes out the right family, who's one with the Father, becomes our head by being destroyed, led by the Holy Spirit to the cross. That's the first word. Let me say that again for the people in the back. The Son who comes out the right family, who's one with the Father, becomes our head by being destroyed, being led by the Holy Spirit to the cross. Did I mention, once again, this is the first word? This is the actual name of the book of what you call Genesis, Barashat. That's the name of it. So you've read the book of Genesis and you've been telling people, and you got people that will literally tell you, people that will argue, people that will fight over whatever, man, I don't even believe in Christ and this and that and the Messiah doing all this stuff or whatever, y'all being extra, and they don't say nowhere in there. That's the first word. How you read Genesis and you miss the Son and he's the first character. How you gonna talk about being Israel and he's gonna be the son that comes out the right family? That's the first word, y'all. Y'all see that? Now here's something else. How do you read the book of John if you can't read the book of Genesis? Or the book of Barashat? How you read Yohanan? Uh-oh. It's sprinkler time? I didn't realize it was sprinkler time. I think I'm all right there. I forgot sprinkler zone, right? How do you read? If you can't read this, how do you read the book of John? What do I mean? Well, we know Genesis 1:1, in the beginning was the word, I'm sorry. I'm just going to John 1:1. Excuse me. Genesis. I'm sorry. Or in beginning, Elohim created the heaven and earth, right? But how do you read John 1:1 if you can't read Genesis 1:1? Because John 1:1 says, in the beginning was the word, and the word was with Elohim, and the word was with Elohim. The same was in the beginning, and nothing was made without him. Wait a minute. So John, who in John 21 tells you that he didn't write the book of John or the epistle of John so that you would be able to execute and say how great you were and how much more knowledge you had of everybody else. He said that he wrote in the book of John 21, he said he wrote this epistle, this letter, so that you would believe. That's what he said. I wrote it so that you would believe. And in John 1:1 of the book that he wrote so that he believed, he started off with Barashat, in beginning. So you don't catch that. If anything, you just think it's a play on words. You think it's playful. But he used the same word to describe who came. John 1:14, he said, the Son came and dwelt amongst you. John 21, he said, I wrote about this person. He said, if I tried to write everything that I ever saw him do, the world couldn't contain all the books that would have to be written. He said, however, I can tell you enough to believe. And first thing he writes in John 1:1, by the shots, in beginning. In beginning. But you never put the two together. Now, here's the crucial part, right? We think that that's big time right there. But he says specifically, he's not being poetic. It's his culture. You would know this if this were, right? This is cultural. You would know this if this was your culture. We got to set these ground rules because people don't recognize what the culture is and how to even have dialogue because you're arguing stuff that has nothing to do with where you come from. You don't know where you come from. I didn't either. And to know doesn't mean to be aware. I'm talking about know means to be intimate. Watch this. So what does John say about Barashat? Barashat is the first scroll of the Bible. But what does John say about Barashat? John refers to it. He says Barashat, in beginning. And then what does he say? In beginning was the Word. Who is the Word? The Son. And the Word was with Elohim, Aleph. And the Word was Aleph. The two. So these two, the Father, Son, and by the way, if you want to write alphabet, which is how we say alphabet, before there was an alphabet, there was an aleph bet. That's how we write our language, 22 characters in it. And if you want to write out aleph bet, you put this first, you put this second. The two go together. You can't have, right? That's why man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word out of the mouth of aleph bet. Here, aleph bet is right there for you to be able to get the word in beginning, from the beginning. We don't know the culture though. We think it's poetry. That's how we present it. It's nice. It's poetry. No, it's not. That's your culture. So in beginning was the Word. In the Word, in beginning. He's telling you in the Word, in beginning, was the Son, the Word. And the Word was with Elohim, Aleph Bet, the two together. And the Word was Aleph Bet. The same was in beginning. The same is in the book of what you call Genesis or Barashat. The same is the beginning of it. You can't read Genesis without having the Father and the Son be the same. Anybody who says that they're not now is somebody who's arguing against the actual way it's written because you're not arguing your culture. You're arguing English translation. You're arguing what you feel. You're arguing what you live by. You're arguing what you were raised with. You're not arguing the word though. See why I said interpretation is key? People are having conversations about this without even knowing how to interpret this. In the beginning was the Word. In beginning, the Word. In beginning has the Word. The Word was with Elohim. The Word was Elohim. Right? The same as in beginning, which means that the Word came out the right family, has to be one with the Father in order to become our head, being destroyed by being led to the cross. First word. Thank you. I appreciate that, right? I'm just trying to say, and those who are on the podcast, we're going to lose you in a second, but we're pretty much finished at this point. But I'm trying to show you that you're arguing stuff without knowing the culture it comes from. There are many people who've never been taught about Barashat. It's quiet now. I'm just saying, right? Like, we're arguing things and don't know what we're talking about. We're arguing what we have no knowledge of. Romans chapter 10, verse 1. It is Paul's prayer. It is my prayer, in all honesty, but I didn't write it. So it's Paul's prayer that all Israel would be saved. Romans 10:2, though. Unfortunately, Israel has a zeal for the Most High, but it's not according to knowledge. It's not according to intimacy. Cash, I'm not ignoring anything. We've already had this discussion. You choose whatever you want to choose. I don't know why you're going to keep fighting me on this or whatever. If you feel you believe what you want to believe, I believe what I want to believe. Matter of fact, it's not even what I want to believe. And I know that you think that I have no clue about the books or something like that or whatever, and you think I'm just saying that I'm Kemet because, like, I'm black. Like, I actually, like, talk to, well, I'll leave it there, right? Much love to you. So at the end of the day, you got to come up in your mind to realize, like, you got to think to yourself what's going on as far as, are you willing to even Deal with those things, right? Are you going to run away from those things? Or are you going to say, like, look, this is what it is? It is what it is. Like, it is what it is at a certain point. You know, like there gets to be a point where like people want to argue about like the color of the dress or whatever. Like if the dress is made by this, I'm not right. Like, well, I don't know. Holy Spirit told me to leave that alone. Okay, I'll leave it alone. Long story short, like this stuff is what it is. We're setting the ground rules. So if you got a problem with the stuff from today, like I'm just telling y'all, like for real, you might not be able to receive anything, and that's okay from any of this. And who knows? Maybe it's because I'm a poor teacher, but all I can do is give you culture. Like all I can give you is culture, right? When you're talking about Yashfa, you're talking about a manifestation. But if you don't know how manifestation works, and you're trying to say that you don't get it, like Yashfa is the manifestation. That's how he's the son, and he's one with the Father. See, you think that that you are dealing with a physical manifestation. Like people will even try to argue and say stuff like, "Well, you can't say that because I have a son, and so my son and I are one." No, see, you physically were already manifested, and you physically manifested your own son, right? The Most High was spiritually manifested and physically manifested his own son. Y'all ain't on the same level. We gonna have a problem, right? That's why we got to set ground rules. We're gonna have. I'm just letting you guys know. I'm trying to set the ground rules from the beginning. I'll pray about it to see if we're gonna go into things further now in Genesis 1, and we got to set some more ground rules because I can see there's gonna be arguments with this the whole time. But I'm just out here trying to make sure we setting these ground rules properly, because once we go through this is not something that every ear is going to hear, and it's okay. And as by the way, you can believe it, not agree with it. At the end of the day, we can still make the main thing if you're trying to make sure our community is better, because there's still things we can do. But when it comes to belief system, as far as this particular context, we're going to get it correct. It's not going to come from whatever makes you comfortable. It's not going to come from we're just going to mix and match whatever we want. It's not going to come from, hey, as long as you agree fully with mine, then I'll agree with yours. Like that's not the standard. And I appreciate when people don't agree, because that means at least you'll uphold your standard. At least I hope you are, not just arguing it. Because a lot of people say they uphold their standards, but then they don't really uphold their standards. They just argue. Right. But for those who actually uphold their standards, like I appreciate you, because there's a lot of people say they believe what I believe and read the same canon that I read. And I don't know what they doing with their life. Right. I'm just saying. So if your standard, like if you're going to talk about Kemet, and you're going to talk about, who it is and all these netures and things like that, if you're going to live it, by the way, you in the land of your captivity too, because you ain't able to worship the way you're supposed to worship. You're not able to make sure your heart is as light as a feather the way you're supposed to either. Right. But I appreciate you trying your best if you're doing it. Right. Like we're both in the land of our captivity. Right. If you say that you're a Muslim, I appreciate you praying 5 times a day. Matter of fact, if you're a Muslim, you're my brother. I appreciate you being able to make sure that you can decipher through this, the surahs and all these different things, and making sure that you give glory to Allah and everything that you do. And hopefully you're keeping up with your stuff. But if you're saying that you're a Muslim and you're not praying 5 times a day, and you're not making sure you're clean before you pray, then I'm just saying, right? And there's a lot of people who say they're Christian. That's why I'm not a Christian. I can't be a Christian and believe in the Bible, because Christianity says you can do whatever you want. Cristianos. I can't be somebody who says that you can believe in God and at the same time you're going to compare him to Elohim. Like you can try, I guess, but they're not the same. Not that I don't have no hate for nobody. It's just real talk. Like if that's what you feel, and that's what you feeling. But let's just be honest. It's not what you think it is. It's not real. But we got to set the ground rules from the beginning. We have to, because a lot of people think that what they think about this, and they've never read a Bible. If you ain't never read a Bible, you can't tell me about it. Not the way you think you can. You can, but you can only tell me from a limited view. That's just the way it is. Malcolm X said that. Hey, if you're going to join, you should never join any organization that you don't know how it works. There are certain things in the Quran I'm not going to tell you about, because I don't know it. So people be like, "What you think about this and that or whatever?" I can just give you what I have. I've studied some of it, but I can just give you what I have. I hear what you're saying, but that's according to knowledge. If you have the knowledge to talk about that, then that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying that that's my brother. So, right? Because if you believe that's Ishmael, that's what they say they are, whether spiritually or some of them even physically. If you're Ishmael, okay, we brothers. So we should figure out a way to live in the same house. And if your family need protection, we should be able to protect each other. If you say you're about what you're about. But see, the Muslim that tells me that he's not, then we ain't then and we're not brothers because he's a Muslim and I'm an Israelite. I don't think you know what you're talking about. Right? We got to set some ground rules. People don't like it, but it is what it is. Like we don't have to set some ground rule and make it known. Like this is what we're gonna deal with. This is what we're gonna talk about. This is the jump. So if this was hard for you on the first thing for the ground rules, you might want to lay off about 2-3 weeks. Poke your head in every once in a while, see if we're still in the subject matter. Our evening sessions will still be different than this. So if you want to come and be with us on Kofi_42 or on YouTube or something like that at a later time, and learn with us and grow with us there, feel free to do that. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you sit through the other stuff. But I can tell for some people, it's going to be painful. Because if I'm talking about the beginning, I'm gonna talk about our culture, especially when we start talking about Genesis 1 humans and Genesis 2 humans, that's gonna mess up a lot of people. Because we never read the culture, we never seen what it says. We don't know how to. It's been so misappropriated and misrepresented that it's gonna cause people to be frustrated. I get it. If I was told a lie, which I partially was, if I was told a lie my whole life, I'd be really irritated with it too, because it would sound like I'm lying. Isn't it interesting that when you tell somebody something they don't know sound like a lie at first? And it's not even that it's a lie. It's not even that it's a lie for real, for real. It's not that it's a lie. It's more so about the fact that somebody's giving you something and you've lived a lie for so long that for somebody to introduce truth, it messes with your emotional status, right? I thought that all black women were supposed to be told that they were strong and independent. And then here come my wife one day teaching me, like, I don't want to stop saying that. I thought I was defending you, babe. No, stop saying that. I don't need you to say I'm strong and independent. Sometimes I need you to make sure that you. Matter of fact, I'm so independent nowadays because that's what society tells me. I'd like to just go ahead and be protected. What? She had to set some new ground rules for me. It caused me to study things different. It's caused me to put out a survey. It caused me to ask other sisters, and sisters started telling me the same thing. And I said, "Wow, I didn't know." And it caused me to go back and look at Willie Lynch and realize, oh yeah, that's when they started doing it back in slavery times, when they started telling them, "Be independent of your man and eat out of our hands." Right? I'm just saying. So all these different things that are out there, we got to get to a place to where we can honor what it says. So, but prayerfully, you guys got something out of it. I have nothing else to say. Holy Spirit told me to wrap it up anyways. Um, Thanks for being on today. We appreciate it. Hopefully you guys got to see a little bit. I'll try and do a little more of this while we're here. We'll probably be here, probably through the end of this week or something like that. Get a chance to actually sit in the place. Y'all seen how much we've been traveling and having a tough time getting signal and stuff. So prayerfully we'll get that together. We got our devices coming along real nicely now. We should be able to have more stuff going. I'm gonna try and rest. I still haven't really rested. We've been enjoying ourselves a lot, even in being here. But at least we've been in the same area, and not have to immediately get in the car within 1 or 2 days of arrival. So we're just chilling, and we're excited. So, like I said, hopefully that means that we'll have some new. We will have some new Patreon stuff. We actually made sure we got back into the habit of recording some of the stuff on Patreon for you guys as well. So we look forward to having that on there. We're gonna have some more shorter videos for you guys soon. We'll have some pictures and stuff coming up of some of the places we've been and just some observations and things going on. Please support each other. Check out the website. Go if you're on TikTok. Oh, by the way, once again, we come back on this evening. It's not gonna be on Kofi_43. It's gonna be on Kofi_42. We'll try to be on YouTube as well, and get back in the habit of that now that we got our devices set, straight again. So we're excited about that. We're excited to be in front of you all again. We're thankful and grateful for this opportunity. You guys really don't know how much it means to me that we're growing and moving and accelerating and things like that in ways that I didn't even think were necessarily possible or even feasible at one point. You guys are so incredible and outstanding, and we can't do this without you guys. Oh, thank you, Slanda. You guys are outstanding, and we really appreciate you all. So we'll be back on tonight, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. We are excited and thankful and grateful. I know I'm supposed to reach out to a couple people today, so hopefully we'll be able to make that happen. If you don't hear from me right away, or if you need to contact me, I am a little tired, so I probably will lay down. I don't know if that's going to turn into me falling asleep or not, but in case I do, feel free to blow up the phone if you need to, if I'm out of order with something we're supposed to talk. But we appreciate you. We honor you. We thank you. And continue to support one another. Check out my wife, the Honorable Amma, once again on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. She's in the business of healing. The tincture of the month, although she has many different tinctures to help heal, tincture of the month is lower my cholesterol, which actually helps with a whole bunch of different things in the body to be able to do so. So if you're interested in getting that, let us know, and she'll get back to you. Once again, if you don't have her information and you want to get it, if you go to our YouTube channel, which you can simply get a lot of information by looking at our link tree. But if you go to our YouTube channel, there's tons of ways to be able to get in contact with us, and we'll get back in contact with you ASAP. But thank you all. We honor you. We appreciate you. And we're grateful for what the Most High is doing and helping us to grow inside of. We're continuing to pray for those that are traveling. I know that some of these babies are getting ready to start school, if not today, tomorrow, something like that. So we're praying for these babies that got to go into the beast and basically have 9 to 5s inside of a building. We're praying that the Most High help them to be able to come out other things that they're going to be dealing with, and we pray that you guys will be paying extra attention to them through this season. Some people did reach out to me about the homeschooling stuff we're trying to provide and do, which my wife is still trying to get together. So if you're interested in doing a once a week type thing, I think it was what she mentioned, once a week doing something for the babies. If you homeschool, or you have the ability to start homeschooling, if you're still interested, we'll make sure that we put something together that's feasible for everybody. But thank you all. We appreciate you. We honor you guys. We honor Yahweh the most. And we give him all the praises and all the honor and glory that's due unto him. Remember your affirmations. We just talked about the 4th affirmation on the early rise of Bible study session today. Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:19. Sorry, Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, and then Romans 8:28. And as always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, Yashua, that you are loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, everybody. Thank you so much. We look forward to talking to you again soon. Peace.